Look at the landscape of modern global religion, and you find a staggering amount of noise. Thousands of conflicting rules, competing rituals, and rigid dogmas, all shouting over each other to claim absolute authority. But behind the static, there is a possibility that often goes overlooked. Every one of these contradictory belief systems may have started from the exact same crystal-clear broadcast. Long before the birth of massive temples or complex doctrines, there were individuals standing in the quiet. Abraham under a vast night sky, Mohammad in a silent cave, Siddhartha beneath a tree. They listened to a presence that challenged their understanding of reality long before any institution arrived to explain it. To survive, those deeply personal encounters eventually had to be inscribed in stone and scrolls. They were translated, debated, and solidified into the ancient texts that now govern the lives of billions. If we strip away these heavy historical layers, we find an initial signal that is universally identical, a direct, unmediated invitation to presence and unity, completely free of any external control. The problem is that a broadcast is only as clear as its receiver. When a pure signal hits the human filter, it crashes into our trauma, our cultural biases, and our egos. It scatters out the other side into jagged, divergent lines. We can see exactly how this signal degrades by looking at a 19th century teenager in Scotland named Margaret MacDonald. Margaret was bedridden and feverish, living in a community consumed by spiritual revival. In that vulnerable state, she experienced a private dream of divine rescue from a chaotic world. It was a deeply personal experience of comfort born from her own mortality, but the theologians of the era hijacked her private vision. They systematized her raw emotional experience into a rigid, apocalyptic framework, creating a prophetic map that promised a divine escape for some and judgment for everyone else. This systematization birthed the modern doctrine of the rapture. A young girl's hope for comfort mutated into a global narrative fueled by end-times paranoia and sacred exclusion. When a pure spiritual signal runs through the filter of human fear, the liberating connection is lost. What remains is a system based on force rather than faith. As religious institutions built walls around the voice, seekers looked for alternative ways to bypass the gatekeepers. They wanted to hack the antenna and hear the signal directly. Indigenous cultures utilized plant medicines as precise, sacramental antennas. These ceremonies were designed to facilitate a direct communion with the voice of the earth, grounding the individual in the aliveness of the universe. In the mid-20th century, this practice entered the Western mainstream. Figures like Timothy Leary attempted to democratize the signal, believing these substances could catalyze a mass awakening and liberate the human mind from societal conditioning. But there was a darker side to this hack. While seekers looked for liberation, the CIA's MKUltra program attempted to weaponize these same sacred chemicals for interrogation and psychological control. The dialogue around these altered states remains highly visible today. Through podcasts and public discussion, the search for a direct, unmediated signal has become a fixture of popular culture.
Ultimately, a chemical antenna is neutral. It is the intention of the user, whether they seek liberation or domination, that determines which voice they actually hear. In the 1970s, the search for the unseen moved from chemicals to the directed mind. Fearing Soviet psychic espionage, the U.S. government launched secret research efforts right here at CIA headquarters. Under Project Stargate, remote viewers successfully described hidden military installations and off-planet coordinates using nothing but their consciousness. The data from these experiments challenged the idea that perception is limited by physical space. This ability suggests that human consciousness functions as a perceptive interface, capable of navigating a reality that exists outside linear time. But if our minds can reach into this field to observe, they also have the power to influence it. Because consciousness is an active interface, our perceptions aren't always neutral. Because consciousness is an active interface, our perceptions aren't always neutral. This map illustrates how collective human fear and rigid religious expectations can actually shape the landscape of the unseen, constructing what are known as false heavens. These astral holding tanks are built from our own cultural thought forms. They appear as luminous, pacifying realms, but they act as a ceiling, a beautiful entrapment that prevents the seeker from reaching the pure, luminous signal floating far above the structures we've built. Deception is just as prevalent beyond the veil as it is on Earth. For the modern seeker, the ability to discern the source of a signal is more important than the ability to hear it. Today, we live in a state of spiritual overload. We are surrounded by digital gurus, podcasts, and an endless stream of New Age channelers, all claiming to have a direct line to the divine. With the cosmic telephone ringing off the hook, how can we navigate the noise without falling into the trap of a false heaven or a coercive cult? You evaluate the message using a single practical metric, the fruit test. First, check the negative indicators. Does this voice demand your compliance? Does it rely on fear to keep your attention? And does it create a sense of separation between you and the rest of humanity? Then look for the positive indicators. Does the message inspire curiosity? Does it promote personal freedom? And does it expand your capacity to love? True power will always liberate the listener. Counterfeit power will always try to control them. This realization leads to a final shift in perspective. Think of the garden not as a physical location lost to history, but as an original state of harmony waiting to be rediscovered. This state is a highly responsive present awareness. It is available in the here and now, requiring no afterlife and no gated community. You do not need an interpreter to find it, and you do not need a classified military protocol to access it. Your own built-in faculties, your dreams, your intuition, and your quiet moments of stillness are your unhackable receivers. They are the tools through which the sacred has always communicated. The divine voice has never stopped whispering. The signal is broadcasting right now. The question is whether you are willing to tune your own dial.